Okay. Welcome to another episode of How Men Grieve. My name's Kay Rogers, your host, and tonight I am flying solo. We had some scheduling conflicts with Aaron and Andrew, so I'm just going to kind of step through this weekly podcast. This week I thought it would be good to talk about one of the major decisions we made after Nicholas passed away, and that was organ donation. And so I'm going to kind of walk you guys through that journey where the idea came from, when we made the decision, what happened afterwards, and how it has helped us in our grieving as times passed. So if you listen to our first few episodes, we kind of walked you through the events that happened the evening that Nick passed away. As a refresher, he stopped breathing on June 20th, 2010, from an acute asthma attack. That was Father's Day. We, did everything we could to save him, rushed him to the hospital. They did everything they could to save him. And we finally got to the point that we had to make the decision to cease efforts. And lo and behold, Nicholas's heart started beating again. So we took him, or the hospital took him up to the pediatric ICU unit and started care up there. That's when they informed us at that point that we did not expect to have any quality of life for Nicholas going forward. They weren't 100% sure of the amount of brain damage, but they expected that it was going to be pretty severe. So that's kind of where all this begins. We had him up in the pediatric ICU, and we had him on life support, just a general term. And while he was on life support, we were all just trying to digest or comprehend or whatever, work through the shock of what just happened. We were notifying our family. We were making phone calls to our friends. Anybody that we thought we needed to tell to come up and say their final goodbyes. At that point, we knew they had done some preventive testing, and we knew that there wasn't going to be much of a chance of him recovering. Well, there was zero chance of him recovering. And so we were kind of working through that. And I remember myself, my wife Pam, my ex-wife Christine, which is Nicholas's mother, and his stepdad Marty were sitting in the room kind of next to where he was at, and the hospital was doing a few things with him. And we were all just kind of sitting there and I think obviously a state of shock. And my wife Pam said, "Hey, what about organ donation?" And it really was just that simple. And we all just kind of paused for a minute, looked at each other and said, "Well, yeah." It wasn't even a second thought not to do it. It was something that had to be done. I think in our minds, it made sense. So we notified the hospital. I walked out and told the nurses station, I said, "Hey, we want to, donate Nicholas's organs." And they said, okay. They notified the Gift of Hope Organ and Tissue Donor Network, which is the organ procurement organization here in Illinois. That's where we're from. And so a few hours later, they came in and they sat with us. It was a really fine young man. And he sat with us and he took us through the paperwork. And we consented to donating Nicholas's heart, lungs, liver, pancreas, kidneys, intestines, his heart, and anything else that we could donate that would be useful. And I'm actually looking at the consent for an anatomical gift from the Gift of Hope from back then. And that's how I know what we consented to give. You can hear me shuffling the papers. And we all signed the papers, and we made the decision to donate Nicholas's organs. None of us at that time really understood the impact that would have on our lives. We didn't realize the impact that would have on other people's lives. We were hoping that in our tragedy, something good would be able to come out of this, and maybe we could help somebody. But we didn't really understand the level of or the intensity or whatever you want to call it, the amount of help that we actually were able to do. So moving forward, we really didn't think a whole lot about that. Coming out of the hospital, we were notified from the Gift of Hope that once he was pronounced dead, that they would take over care and that they needed time to be able to line up the recipients, make matches, determine who's a good match, determine if there are matches, what can be matched, where it can go, who can get it, all those types of things. A lot of work goes into this, a lot of work in the background. And so we had a doctor come in and tell us, since we were going to, he was an organ donor, that we needed to keep him on all the medication and all the mechanical ventilation and all these things that were helping him so we keep his organs as healthy as we could. And so we did that. And we kept him on that support for an extra 24 hours or so before he was pronounced brain dead. And then once he was pronounced, the Gift of Hope came in with their nurses and doctors, and they worked tirelessly to keep him as healthy as they could so they could procure those organs and save some lives. Because that's what this really does. It saves lives. So fast forward to, 24 hours later, they finally let us know that they had lined out the recipients, and we had to commit to a time that we would leave the hospital so they could then take Nicholas down to the emergency room, or not the emergency room, the operating room, and procure his organs and get those on the way to the recipient so we could save some lives. So on Wednesday afternoon, we left at 5 o'clock for the last time, feeling our son warm, and we went home to an entirely different and strange place because nothing felt familiar or the same at that point. We received a call about 2:30 in the morning on Thursday morning, and I remember that night it stormed. I mean, it stormed bad. We had rain, torrential thunder, lightning, all that. It was just one of those big, giant Illinois storms. And we finally got a call because they expected they were going to do the procurement earlier in the evening and then get the organs on their way. But because of the storm and everything, kind of delayed the flights, the transportation, everything. Because when organs are being donated and transplanted, depending on the distance that they have to go, is depending on the type of transportation they have. So if it's a helicopter plane or whatever, obviously they can't fly in those types of weather conditions. So we finally got a call at 2:30 in the morning, letting us know that the organ procurement had went well and that the organs were on their way to the recipients. And that was kind of the last time we thought about that. Really, our time at that point became dominated. We had to plan a funeral, visitation, funeral, get grave sites bought, go and buy caskets, vaults, plan how that was going to go, talk to the funeral homes. And it just kind of make all these horrible, terrible decisions because we knew, we were going to bury our son, talk with the church, get the service lined up there, notify everybody, get the obituary put in the paper. There's a tremendous amount of work that goes into this behind the scenes. If you've never had to go through something like this, which I hope most everybody out there listening has never had to go through this, you don't really get a chance to realize what exactly has just happened because you're so overwhelmed with the amount of extra work. And I know it sounds weird saying it that way, but just the amount of extra stuff that comes your way that you have to make decisions on that you never thought in your life you're going to be ready to make or prepare to make for that matter. Nobody plans to have to bury their kids. Nobody makes that decision that, hey, I've got to go talk to the nurse or to the nursing home. Oh boy. Hopefully my kids will put me in the nursing home when it's my time. Nobody thinks that they have to go talk to the funeral home and plan their kid's funeral. I will tell you, as I have that paper in front of me as well, I do know when we planned our funeral for Nicholas, and there's just a little FYI, you also don't understand the cost that goes behind it. But for our son, and because he was a child, it was discounted. Our funeral services and the visitation and all that, the memorial, etc., that cost us $9,019. Now, that did not include the cost of the cemetery plots: the burial, the opening of the cemetery plot, the burial, and the closing. That was just for the funeral home and the necessities of the casket involved and all that. But anyway, I digress. So, and that was in June, obviously. Fast forward a little bit. Obviously, we were all in a very, very dark place, a very lonely place, a very unfamiliar place, and nothing felt good about where we were at in life at that moment. We were so overwhelmed with grief that none of us really knew who we were, where we were going. Everything was so unfamiliar. It was just a very strange time. I don't even know how to explain it other than if you walk into your house that you've lived in for 20 years and all of a sudden you look around and nothing is familiar to you, and then you have this giant weight on your shoulders, or I don't know. And that's just how it feels. That's not even really the grief, but that's just part of the emotion that you're going through at that time. Anyway, so we had the opportunity to go to a quarterly memorial mass from the hospital, and that mass was talking about, it was just honoring all of the people that had passed away in that quarter from, various different things. And so we went to that mass to honor our son, and our son was on that list, and he was number 250 that was read that day. And so we went to that. We thought that would help make us feel better. I don't remember if it did or did not. Honestly, I don't really remember even going to it, but I know I have the papers here that we got from going. That's kind of a little memorial. And as we try to remember things about Nicholas, that's one of the things that we kept. But it wasn't really until, in between that, in July of 2010, it was July 15th exactly, we received a letter from the Gift of Hope. And none of us really knew the impact that this organ donation was going to have until we received this letter. At least this was the start of it. This is where our healing began. And it says, "Dear Mr. Rogers," and just, my ex-wife, Christine Johnson, also received the same type of letter. It says, "Please accept my deepest sympathy on the recent loss of your son, Nicholas. I hope you find solace during this difficult time. Your son has given the gift of hope through organ donation, a gift that gives others a new chance at life. Offering this gift is an extraordinarily generous decision. As you have requested, I am writing to share a little information about the people whose lives were saved through your son's selfless gift. A 14-year-old boy from Kansas received your son's heart. He was fortunate enough to wait only 6 days for his gift of hope. The transplant was a success, and the new heart began to work right away. He is looking forward to recovering at home with his parents and 2 brothers. A 12-year-old boy from Minnesota received the liver. He was fortunate enough to wait only 5 days for his gift of hope. The surgery went well, and the new liver began to function immediately. He is anticipating recuperating at home with his family and friends. A 34-year-old man from Illinois received the right kidney and pancreas. He waited 1 month for his gift of hope. The transplant was a success, and he is home recovering with his family and friends. A 50-year-old woman from Texas received his left kidney. She waited 6 years for her gift of hope. The surgery went well, and she is looking forward to the recovering at home with her husband and spending time with her children and grandchildren. The lungs could not be used for whole transplant, but were recovered for research being conducted at University of Chicago Medical Center. This study is part of a national consortium examining specific inflammatory diseases of the lungs, such as cystic fibrosis. We at Gift of Hope and Organ and Tissue Donor Network wish to extend our appreciation for this life-changing gift you and your loved one have made possible for others. Donation truly is the gift of life. And I would agree with that. I think in this letter where we talked about they were waiting for their gift of hope, it truly was a gift of life. Two of them children had been very, very ill, had been waiting for an organ. And when you make the organ donation list, you typically don't have a whole lot of time left. And these two children were saved. And I can tell you, I am so proud and so happy that these children were saved, because they deserve life, and a long one. And thank God their parents don't have to feel like we do. And I'm not saying that in spite. I'm not saying that in jealousy. I'm just saying that we save those people the pain and the torture that comes along with losing a child. And those children get to experience a life they didn't think they were ever going to be able to have. And that's a powerful, powerful thing. And I feel really proud of that. And so that felt really good for us. We started our healing process shortly afterwards. And that was the start of the healing process. It wasn't easy, but we did it. And so it wasn't until, hold on a minute. Sorry, I lost my paperwork here I was trying to find. It was in November of that same year, we received another letter. And it was not a letter that any of us expected to receive. Excuse me while I take a drink. And this letter really, really drove home how impactful organ donation was to these families. It's dated November 2nd, 2010. And I'll read it to you now. It has been nearly 11 months since our son Elliot was diagnosed with a rare type of liver cancer, hepatoblastoma. What began as a fierce side ache led to the surgical removal of a mass nearly the size of a small baseball from his liver, and then many rounds of chemotherapy. All of this was with the hope and prayer that someday he might be eligible for liver transplantation, the only real cure for the aggressive, unusual type of cancer invading his body. Elliot is the type of kid you enjoy being around, thinks ahead what each member of the family would like to receive for Christmas, loves little children, laughs really hard at funny stuff, has creativity beyond measure. He had always been the easy baby, and I don't really remember teaching him how to do a lot of things as it seemed to come natural to him. That all changed with this diagnosis and treatment. The world became foreign to him, to us, and to all those who know and love him. His hair fell out, weight seemed to be melting off of him. He was so fatigued, afraid, and in many ways isolated from the world outside as he was seriously immunosuppressed. Chemotherapy drugs caused this. Had a chronic systemic infection waiting to rear its ugly head, cancer wanting to burst back onto the scene and move to his lungs or bones. Our hope and prayer was to get Elliot through the treatment so he could be listed for transplant. It often seems so daunting. Yet somehow, all the care providers and supporters encouraged us to keep moving forward with hope. My point in all of this is to convey to you, the donor family, the amazing gift of life you chose to give to our Elliot. It was through your sorrow and loss, unselfishness and hopelessness that he today is growing and moving forward. On a rainy night in June 2010, we were notified a match had been located. My heart sank and soared at the same time. I had anticipated grief, thinking Elliot might not make it across the threshold to receive a donor organ. Suddenly, this was flipped and I began to grieve for your family, your loss, your void. My words cannot ever fill the void or erase your tears. But I do want you to know the joy and thanksgiving you have so graciously extended to our family. Our faith was buoyed and our strength renewed. Please know we give thanks each day for your family, the gift givers. Elliot is back in school in the afternoons now. He hangs out with his brothers and sisters, loves his dog a lot, and wants to be able to run and play sports again. We aren't quite there yet, although I think it will come back to him. He was recently named the winning artist for a butterfly picture he submitted. I took him to get a new suit, tie, and shoes to wear in the event where he will be recognized and funds will be raised for important research for childhood cancers. Tears brimmed in my eyes as he came out of the dressing room to show me how things looked on him. He does not take this gift lightly. He faithfully takes his medications, submits to all the necessary tests, and continues to willingly make all appointments to see his expansive healthcare team. Minor stuff in the grand view of things. Without your loved one providing him a revitalized liver, there would be no art contests, new outfits, or 7th grade for our son. When he asked me what I was thinking I wanted for Christmas this year, I smiled over at him without hesitation and said, "Oh, I already have what I want for all the Christmases I will experience in my life, Elliot. I only wish I could give back to you what you have done for me, friends." As winter begins and your family gathers for the holidays, the calendar turns over to 2011 and your loved one is not there with you. Please know our hearts go out to you and we hold you in our thoughts. We are bound together by the close-knit nature of our loved ones, donor and recipient. Amazing people. And if that letter doesn't move you, nothing will. And that was really what made us feel good about our decision to become an organ donor family. And are we blessed to be able to be those people that are able to provide that gift of life to that mother and father and that little boy? And so I have spent many years talking about organ donation and educating people on the need and the desire and the wants and the things that we can do to help people. And these things are the things that make a difference in the world today. Put all differences aside, and we can save lives. And so we made that decision to do that. So in our grief, and we were in it deeply, going through our lives, it was not easy. It was a very big challenge. We did not reply at the time. I wasn't sure what to say. I didn't want to send a letter back and have it be a feel sorry for me letter. I wanted it to be a letter of encouragement and faith and a gift of life, a miracle. And I was afraid at that time, being so new into this, that I wasn't going to be able to do that. So it was several years later, and I had done a lot of organ donation talks. I've done a lot of organ donation advocacy work. I've done speeches at hospitals. I've done speeches at churches. I've done speeches in high schools. I've done TV interviews. I've done newspaper interviews. I've done a lot of different advocacy work, and I continue to do that work. I enjoy it. I love every opportunity I get to talk about my son, and it's a cause that I think, honestly, from just saving people, we can all get around. It is a good thing. And a lot of people have a lot of reservations about things, and I'm not going to get into all that right now. I'll probably do another episode talking about the need of organ donation and some of the other stuff that comes along with that, and some of the fears, and try to dispel some of those. But I can tell you that it's an amazing thing. And so we hadn't wrote back. And we weren't sure what we wanted to write that time. we wanted to just heal. And whatever that looks like, I don't know. But we wanted to heal for a while. And so it was 2014, we received another letter from that family. And I'm going to share that letter with you and just kind of talk through what that meant to us. And then at that point thereafter, that's when we made the decision that we were ready to finally write back. And it took a while. But like I said, we weren't in the place that we thought we could write a letter that expressed how fortunate we felt that we're able to help their son. And I know that may sound crazy because the sacrifice we made to be able to do that was the death of our son. But we knew that no matter what we did, that outcome wasn't changing. But finally, we were able to impact somebody else's outcome and several people's outcomes. So in June 11th, 2014, we received another letter from them. Excuse me, I had to take a drink. And it's an interesting letter. And she started it out with a quote. And that quote is, "You are braver than you believe, stronger than you seem, and smarter than you think." And that was quoted by Winnie the Pooh. And so she writes this letter, and she starts it out, it says, "Dear donor families and loved ones." And so she's doing a speech or a talk or an educational opportunity. And it says, "Today is an amazing day in my life. Really, every morning I should awaken with this attitude, and generally I do. But as I write this, I think of you and have a great deal of gratitude for the selfless gift of organ donation made on behalf of your loved one. Today is one of the two very important days in my son's life. 4 years ago today, he received a life-saving liver transplant. And as you know, or as you will read below, he needed another life-saving transplant just weeks later. Organ donors and their families mean so much to me, to Elliot, to everyone who comes to know him." So what she's saying is that his first transplant did not take, but then the one he got from our Nicholas did. "I was asked to speak during chapel at his school this last Valentine's Day in recognition of Organ, Tissue, and Eye Donation Day. The campus pastor and school principal asked me to share Elliot's story, and they particularly wanted me to underscore the value and impact organ donation has had in our lives. So here is the outline of my talk." So this is the talk that she was giving to the campus pastor and school principal. So we'll go through that. "Good morning, and thank you for inviting me here today to share with you some of our experience with organ donation. Sometimes, actually most of the time, in our earthly life, we are not able to anticipate what will happen or where the road will take us. But thankfully for Christians, we already have certainty about how things are going to turn out, beautifully and wonderfully. Our story of Elliot's journey is exactly that, part of the Lord's plan. Organ, tissue, and eye donation and transplantation is in many ways a complicated process wrought with political, financial, and social aspects. In other ways, it is simply a gift that money or power can't buy. It is selfless and kind. On a cold and snowy Sunday night in December 2009, we thought Elliot had appendicitis. He was 11 years old at the time. But we got news no parent wants to hear. The emergency room doctor found a baseball-sized cancerous tumor on his liver. That's about 11 centimeters. In many ways, our world has turned upside down. They diagnosed a very rare form of cancer, hepatoblastoma. Only 105 children each year in the United States are diagnosed each year, and survival rates are not good for more than half of the children. Within days of finding the tumor, Elliot, a major surgery to to resect the tumor, cut it out, and then launch into 6 months of chemotherapy with 4 different drugs and countless procedures. He spent many, many weeks in the hospital. None of this would be enough to save his life, as the cancer he had came back within 5 weeks of his initial surgery and was really only held at bay by having all of the chemo drugs. His only option was to take out his cancerous liver and give him a donated one. After 6 months, Elliot's treatment culminated in not one, but 2 life-saving liver transplants and 2 final rounds of chemo before beginning the journey of rehabilitation. Why do I tell you this? Of course, first and foremost is to share the message of thanksgiving to God that He made all of this care and treatment possible. But also, I want you to know that choices other families made in their time of sadness and desperation made it possible for Elliot to be here as a sophomore in high school, nearly 16 years old, having doubled his body weight and grown nearly 7 inches since his transplants. Elliot is surviving and thriving. We can't assume who will be the donor that saves lives somewhere in Minnesota or across the U.S. today. It can happen in any family at any time. Doctors and researchers are not able to treat and cure patients with a variety of conditions and diseases, especially kids like Elliot, without organ, tissue, and eye donation. By going home and talking to your family, talking here with your friends, by checking the box yes when you get to renew your driver's license, by wearing a bright green wristband, by tweeting or posting on your Facebook your intention to be a donor, you let others know that you want to offer this gift in the event you are unable to express your wishes. True love and gratitude, that is the feeling I have for the families that gave us the gift of life. It emulates the selfless love Christ has for us, extending Elliot's time of grace. Thank you for listening, and I have one quick question. Please raise your hands up high if you have already checked the box on your driver's license, if you have one. Thank you and thank you. So, the message to you is thank you. As we celebrate Elliot's life, I know you feel sorry, and I am very sorry. I pray in some small way, knowing the gift you have given lifts you up. Here are some photos of Elliot over the past couple of years. He plays on the golf and soccer teams at his high school, swims like a fish, loves to roughhouse his 2 nephews, ages 2 and 5, has driving permit and marked box to be a donor, active in youth group at church, takes his anti-rejection meds, and does all the labs and clinic appointments faithfully. Talented artist, loves his dog, enjoys hunting and fishing, thinks he may want to go into law enforcement and other types of public service. And then she had attached some pictures of him, and he looks absolutely amazing. A healthy, vibrant, good-looking, obviously energetic, full of life, 16-year-old boy. But that was just the second letter from his mom. In the same envelope, we received the first letter from Elliot, the one that received Nicholas's liver. And so I'll read this letter to you, and so you can feel the impact and the joy and the graciousness we feel by having our son save this little boy's life. And it says, "Thank you for your gift of life that you have given to me. For over these past few years and for years to come, I have celebrated every moment that I get to spend with my friends and family that other people would take for granted. I spend my life knowing that without this, I wouldn't be here doing these things I do now. I thank God every day for my life that you graciously gave me as a gift from your heart that didn't have to give, but you did, knowing it would be given to someone in need. Thank you for giving my life back so that I would have a second chance at life." And that was written from the little boy that received Nicholas's liver. So those are powerful, powerful letters and powerful words of emotion and graciousness and thanks. But I can tell you from our point of view, there was no thanks needed. There's never a thanks needed for just doing the right thing. And we felt that doing organ donation was the only option we had. It is the right thing. And we would not ever, nor have we ever regretted our decision to do that. So we spent some time digesting that, and it took us a little while. It did. It took us a little while. When we weren't sure at that point if we were ready to write a letter back. And so we chose to talk about it, and we decided to go ahead and write that letter. And so when we wrote that letter, here's what we wrote back. And again, if you remember correctly, I wanted it to be a letter of encouragement, a letter of faith, a letter of, just support, thankfulness. We were grateful we were able to save their son's life. And so I'll read this letter to you, and hopefully we did a good job when we wrote this. And this was written back in 2014 as well. And it says, "Hi, I am finally taking the time to reply to your letters you have sent to us since all of our lives were changed immeasurably. I want to assure you we didn't avoid writing back to you. It just took all of us some time to work through the grieving process. As I look back over the time that has passed since we lost Nicholas, it has been a tough road, but a rewarding one as well. Nicholas was a high-energy, fun-loving, loud kid who was so tiny but had a huge personality. He brought in the room energy only a few people have, and most of us want. He loved life to the fullest every day. He loved his family. He could fight with his brothers and sisters, but would be looking for them within a few minutes to play or have fun with them. Never stayed mad for long. He was the type of kid who never met a stranger and knew every person between our house and where his mom and stepdad lived. In short, he was an incredible 11-year-old kid. Nicholas was certainly not without his own challenges, all which he took in stride. He was born with a cleft palate and had several surgeries as a baby to fix the hole in the roof of his mouth. As a result, he went through 7 sets of tubes throughout the years. It became an annual event for quite some time. And when he had to get braces, he had to wear a head brace for 9 months before the brace could be put on. But the one that was the worst, the one that took him from us, was his asthma. Nicholas had been treated for asthma for years. He honestly never let it slow him down. He played football, baseball, basketball, and his newly loved sport of lacrosse. But unfortunately, the evening of Father's Day in 2010, he had his last attack. It was late in the evening, and it came on so strong and so fast that no matter what any of us did, he couldn't be saved. By the time we got him stabilized again, his heart had stopped and had to be restarted, and too much time had went by without sufficient oxygen flow. He had brain damage he could never come back from or survive. We made the decision to donate his organs as a matter-of-fact thing to do. We have never to this day ever second-guessed the decision to donate. We kept him on life-sustaining measures so we could keep his organs as healthy as we could in hopes to help as many people as we could. We knew we would never have Nicholas back the way we wanted, but we definitely wanted to spare other parents the pain we were in. And thanks to your letters, we have that confirmation. As you stated in your first letter so eloquently, the void could not ever be filled. But I can tell you, all of our healing began when we received a letter from the Gift of Hope explaining to us where Nicholas's organs went. Then we received a letter in November of 2010. We all felt as if we just got an early Christmas present. Reading the letter you sent us, sharing with us your story was such a relief from our grief. The pictures were absolutely moving, seeing how sick Elliot was and then how great he looked after the transplant. It was truly proof that miracles do actually take place. The following years had their share of ups and downs, but every day that passed, our healing continued. We have honored Nicholas's memory by becoming organ donor advocates, volunteering through the Gift of Hope. We share Nicholas's story so we can show people that even in tragedy, even one as terrible as losing a child, there is a glimmer of hope. That hope comes in the form of the gift of life provided through organ donation. Even though we miss Nicholas terribly, we never miss a day where we are thankful and proud our son saved others. I can tell you, we all were pleasantly surprised when we received your letter over this summer. I would not have blamed you for not writing in after we hadn't written back. I can't believe how great Elliot looks. What a handsome young man. It's truly hard to think about a child having their learner's permit already. How much things change of a little over 4 years. Nicholas would have turned 16 this year. I can't imagine the fear we would have felt teaching Nicholas to drive, but we would love to have that opportunity if we could. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us. It truly has helped us with our healing and uplifted our spirits. We have enclosed some pictures of Nicholas to give you an idea of the kind of kid he was. I hope they give you the same smiles as they provided to us. And that is the last letter that we've exchanged. And I think between the letters that they sent and the letter that we returned, I think we all got to the point we understood that all of our faith and all of our blessings and our grief and our excitement and happiness and healing all came from organ donation. And I can't say enough how important it is for people to register. If you haven't already, I'm asking you, please take a minute. You can go online. In Illinois, you can go to thegiftofhope.org, or you can go to the Secretary of State and you can register online. Donate Life America also has a link on their page, and you can go there and you can register to be an organ donator. You just never know who you may help. So hopefully, I hope you guys enjoyed this podcast. I hope it moved you. I hope it impacted you. I hope that you guys share this with your friends, and not only because I want you to listen to my podcast, it's really I want you to understand the impact and the just the change and the miracle and the gift of life that was given through organ donation. We all can choose to make that impact and give that miracle. So please take a moment, register, and maybe you or someone you love can receive or give the next miracle. And with that being said, I think now's a good time to say goodbye. And thank you so much for listening. And remember, pain is pain, so let's talk about it and let's keep it real. Peace.